Welcome to Dr. Lottie Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie and the host of this podcast. Today, I am really excited to introduce Sunny Dawn Johnston. So let me read her bio to introduce her. Sunny Dawn Johnston is an acclaimed psychic medium, transformational thought leader, and spiritual biz mentor. She is the author of 21 books, including bestsellers Invoking the Archangels and The Love Never Ends, which have become the cornerstones for her keynote topics such as intuition, mediumship, and the angelic realm. Sunny is also the creator of the Elevate Your Life membership site, a virtual community focused on designing a high vibrational life, bursting with abundance, self-love, and joy. Leading the Elevate Your Life community, Sunny focuses on accountability, support, and guidance as the solid foundation of intentional and lasting transformation. Sunny's membership, My Spiritual Biz, is a community for heart-based entrepreneurs. Sunny's 30 years of business experience and her multi-million-dollar generating team guide and mentor members who are starting, building, or growing a spirit-based business. SDJ Productions has expanded Sunny's work beyond writing and speaking engagements and into publishing books, CDs, and Oracle card decks. Her latest project is the Multidimensional Oracle card deck. In her spare time, Sunny is involved as a psychic investigator for the international organization Find Me. This is a nonprofit organization of psychic, investigative, and canine search and rescue volunteers collaborating to support law enforcement and families of missing persons and homicide victims. Through her work, Sunny has cultivated a diverse global community. Whether in person or online, her mentorship encourages students to connect with their heart and guides them to experience life in a higher vibrational, multi-dimensional way. So welcome, Sunny. It's such an honor to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Excited to be with you today.
So I am just so fascinated about the organization Find Me and how psychic and mediums work with law enforcement to help find missing people. Do you have any story that you would want to share with the listeners today?
Sure. Yeah, we have a lot of them. Well, I started with them about, probably 17 years ago now. And the reason that I started working with them is because I started having experiences where I had awareness or insight about cases that would come on TV, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I called the police a couple of times, and then they asked me a whole lot of questions that I didn't know the answers to. And I thought, okay, that's not the way to do it. And spirit guided me to Find Me back then. So, one of the stories that is, it was a sad ending, but it was a great story. Was there was a man that was missing from Kansas, and he had been taking care of his mother. He actually lived with his mom, was taking care of her, and he literally just disappeared and just vanished. And the great thing was that we were contacted maybe 5 months after, which is soon, because we're usually the last place people go, not the first. And so that was pretty quick on our as far as receiving the case. And the really interesting thing about it was that the police chief came to us. Ordinarily, police not so excited about working with us. It's usually a family member that tells the police, the family member wants us to get involved. But this was the police chief that came in and said, hey, we don't know, and we just want the help, and we don't care, who gets the credit, whatever. And so that was great in and of itself. But we all got the case. And so when we work cases, we usually get a picture of the person, we get their date of birth, we usually get the city and state that they were born in, and sometimes we get the location of where they were last seen, not always. And so when there were 3 of us that when we turned our cases in, were within, I think we were all within a quarter mile of each other. Now, that's people, psychics working from all over the world who've never been to Kansas, right? And so there was 3 of us within, I think it was a quarter of a mile of each other. And so then when, so this was in, I think this was in December, and my guidance said, it's not going to be found until like April, when things thaw. And I happen to feel so we have to give GPS coordinates of where we believe the body is, specific GPS coordinates. And so my GPS coordinates were in a river that led one smaller river that led into a bigger river that led into now I can't think of what it was. Anyway, so but I said it's not going to be until April. Well, when the first thaw happened in April, the police chief put a boat right in the water, because there were so many of us that were along that waterway. And he put a boat in, and they searched, but there was still ice in the river. And so they pulled it out and they said, okay, we're going to wait. They waited 3 weeks later. And when they got to a particular spot that was 100 feet from my GPS coordinate, they hit a little bit of a tree. And when they hit the tree, the body came up.
Wow.
And they were able to find this man. I think it was 7 months or ish total. But they were able to find him. And 3 of us, like I said, were really, and then we were all along the waterway. So one of them would have, one of the coordinates, they would have found him. But it was such a beautiful thing, because it's so rare that police want to work with us and also recognize the value of the work. And the mother was able to put her son to rest and not have that fear and concern and worry about, what happened. And we've had so many cases like that, that's really why we do this work, why I do this work, because it's not necessarily fun. It's difficult, it's heartbreaking. You see and hear so many just tragic stories. And not very often do they turn out positive. Very rarely do we find somebody alive. But we have found people alive. And so that was one of the stories. It was a great one because we had the support, honestly.
Wow. It's just fascinating how close your GPS coordinates were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I know it was that's the closest I've gotten. That's the closest I've gotten, 100 feet. And I'm like, oh, okay. That was pretty good. And we I've had many that we've gotten either the right street or found them in a particular area that was very close to, but that one was like a boom right on. And then I remember when the reading came through, he was so clear. It just specifically told me right where he was. And I knew that's where he was. It was just like, okay, well, when they can get to him, that's where he's going to be. Right. So sometimes we have better communicators in the spirit world than other times too.
Right. So yeah, can you clarify that for the listeners? It's not just about you doing a reading, right? It's also about the spirit that's communicating with you.
Exactly. So we have the deceased energies that have to, we've got to connect with them. And some of them are not as communicative, not as expressive. I think sometimes they're still in a, I call it a healing space where they haven't kind of figured out the tools and how to be able to express and communicate in that form. But this was one that was really good. And so he obviously, for 3 of us to be in that really close range, he really was able to communicate with us in a clear way. And that was awesome.
Wow, just amazing. Do you have, and is there any other stories you would want to share?
Oh goodness. We have so many. There was a case here in Arizona where there was a woman that went on a helicopter ride for lunch, just went up to Sedona for a helicopter ride for lunch. And in that particular case, we worked that case really, really hard because we all really knew that she was in this one canyon, but they couldn't find her. And in Sedona, there's a lot of areas that aren't reachable. Like they can't get in there, the search and rescue recovery, like they can't get down in there because it's just such difficult terrain. And the helicopter, it was an airplane. The airplane was just literally missing, tiny little airplane, but just went off radar and never to be seen again. And it took a couple of years of, God, I think there were 100 searches. And the family was such a beautiful family, and they were so involved, and they were so focused on finding their daughter. And ultimately that area of that canyon that so many of us saw her, she was found. And one of the messages that I received when we first got the case, like 2 years before, she told me, she said, I don't want my dad to see me this way. And because her body was burned and of course all of that. Well, her dad was on every single search except the one they found her on.
Wow.
Except the one they found her on. So God, there's so many stories. I mean, we've been really blessed to be able to create closure. And that's why we do the work, is because it offers an opportunity for closure for families that otherwise wouldn't have it.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing work, just amazing. So let's just switch gears, because I know we got to cover so many different things.
I'm all over the place, my friend.
So I want to talk a little bit about angels. So when did you have your first angel encounter?
I was 13 years old. 13 years old, and I woke up in the middle of the night and went to roll over. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. I went to roll over, and when I rolled over, there was light above me. And as I turned over, I looked, and there was this beautiful, colorful winged being above my bed. And as I sat there in this, like, what is this? This just calm came over me, and this sense of serenity came over me. And I just felt like I was almost just basking in unconditional love. And at that age, I didn't even know what that was. And I didn't really even believe in angels, but it was so calming, in fact, that I literally just rolled over and went back to sleep. And the next morning I woke up, and then my head kicked in, and then I was like, oh my God, what was that? And I ran downstairs and I told my mom what happened. And she said, well, Sunny, that was your guardian angel. And I said, well, I don't think I have one of those, because if I had one of those, and none of the bad things that ever would have happened in my life ever would have happened, right? That was my 13-year-old mind. And my mom said, well, no, that was your guardian angel. And everybody has guardian angels, Sunny. And I said, well, I don't think I do. And then she went on to tell me that she had come into my room that night at 11 o'clock, and she prayed over me. And that was not normal behavior for my mom, but she was really concerned about my mental and emotional state, because I was really struggling in my environment. And she prayed over me, and she asked God and the angels to keep me safe. And
Wow.
so, what I recognized and became aware of that day was that even though I didn't believe in it, wasn't sure that was even true, I had awakened to the manifestation of my mom's prayer. And that set me on a journey of curiosity that I'm still on today. Still curious.
Right. I mean, that's just such a fascinating story. And that your mom had, prayed over you that night too, and that you didn't believe in it.
I didn't have any. I kind of thought angels sat on the mantle.
Right.
Like that was kind of I didn't know that you could have a relationship with them by any means, and they just felt more kind of like religious and heavy, which I wasn't religious. And so it really was a eye-opening experience. It really set my life's work in motion.
No, I understand. I mean, having gone through my 2 near-death experiences and did not believe in the afterlife, did not believe in the spirit world, did not believe in angels, and what do I encounter?
Yeah,
all of it.
Yes.
So we all have our unique paths in this lifetime, and whatever is supposed to happen for us to experience is going to happen, whether we like it or not, or whether we believe in it or not.
That's right.
That's just the path. So how do the angels come to you now?
Now they come to me differently. So then they used to come to me actually like what we kind of see images of angels. Now they come to me as light forms, light beings. So sometimes it's colored light, sometimes it's iridescent light. Sometimes there's actually no real form at all. It's just a presence or awareness. And I've developed my awareness of them enough over the years, because I really was trained and taught by them, that I can know and sense and feel the presence and what vibration, what frequency my guardian angel, Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, just based on that sense now. But when like a new energy is coming in, they come in through light. So light beings, some people might refer to them as.
Mm-hmm. And do you see like a light being, like
At times, sometimes actual like a light being, and sometimes just it's hard to explain because it's light, but there's no form to it. So then we say, okay, well then how do you know where it ends? You kind of just do. Sometimes they'll take more of that light bodied form, but most of the time it's really just light.
so like a light pillar kind of, or just light?
More like,
I'm just thinking
well,
for
so
people
like
who are listening and
yeah, like
might
some
have
people might
encountered
be,
something like that.
yeah, some people might be familiar with orbs. So, but orbs kind of have a defined end. This doesn't have a defined end. So there's no edge. It's just really a strong light in the presence that kind of drifts away. Might be a good explanation. I think that oftentimes for people when they're learning, the angels come to them in a form so that they recognize that that's the being that is present with them. But as you grow and expand and become more familiar with the energy, then form lessens.
So how do you use your intuition to navigate you through life?
Oh, goodness. I think intuition is like the most critical thing. You know, for me, it was a fight. Quite honestly, I really struggled with embracing my intuition because there were, you know, I wanted to be normal. I don't know about the rest of you, but I wanted to be normal. So that was like my only goal in life was, can I just be normal? And we found out, nope, I'm not. Except for that, yes, I am, because we all are intuitive and we all have those abilities and we all have the gifts. And so, but normal, where I grew up, Salt Lake City, Utah, was this was not it. And so I really pushed against it. So my intuition for the first 15 years was on again, off again. It was really cool. And then I was like, I just want to be normal. Really cool. I just want to be normal. Have these major experiences with angels. I just want to be normal. Nowadays, I think that my intuition is so ingrained. I actually don't know the difference anymore. You know, I don't have the line that is, it's so a part of me that it's not even something I would think to go, okay, let me tap into my intuition. My intuition is what truly guides me. Now, I'm not going to say my head doesn't kick in sometimes. For sure does. But my nature is more of an intuitive level than it is kind of the heady piece of us anymore. But I do think that when we're tapping into the intuition, the most important thing we need to do is just ask. We just need to ask to be guided. We need to ask for that support. We need to ask for the signs and the symbols and the messages that makes life more fun. It makes life more fun when you see that, oh yeah, I'm going through a lot of change and it's 555 on the clock everywhere I look, right? That's a cool thing. You're like, oh, okay, there's something to this. And so it makes it more lighthearted and fun, because this life can be hard and it can be heavy and it can be difficult when all you're doing is focusing on kind of the human aspect of things. When we bring spirit into it, man, that lightens things up.
I love it. So if people are listening and they're wondering how can they strengthen or build their own intuition, do you have any advice for them?
Sure. First and foremost, I think it's great to set an intention every morning to connect with your angels, your guides, or your loved ones in spirit. I call it my spirit team, and ask them to allow you to experience them in a way that you know it's them. So allow you to have an experience and then pay attention. So you've got to get present. So I think that presence is the key to intuition. So it's opening that energy up, setting that intention and asking, and then getting present to those subtleties. I think part of the problem is that so many people, they're looking for the big wahoo, you know, they're looking for like this major, huge announcement, where the angels are subtle. It's just that little hint of something, or that little scent, or that little vibe that, you know, you check out a little bit. So subtlety is how it usually starts, and then it expands from there. So I think that when you can be present, you start to notice those subtle signs. You start to observe the messages, and you don't just pass it off as, well, that was weird. I mean, I have so many students when they first start with me and everything in their life is weird. I'm like, no, it's not weird. This is normal. This is healthy. This is intuition. This is connection to spirit, not weird, right? Because we negate the gift by saying weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just tuning into it and learning to trust it.
Yes.
So when, what do you feel in your body when intuition is calling you into presence?
So probably the first thing, what it used to be when I first started was it actually felt a little bit more like pain. I would get like a tightness in my body. I would get a tightness in my gut for sure. Sometimes a tightness in my neck, and even like a pounding in my head. So it was like, pay attention. And then when I started learning how to pay attention, most of the time, what happens for me is it almost feels like I have antennas all over my body. It's like alert, right? Like it's just like sign, message. And I always describe to people that I feel like my hair is growing. I know it's an odd thing, but it feels like back in the day when I was a kid, they used to have Play-Doh machines and that you'd put Play-Doh in and you push this little button. It was called the fuzzy pumper set. And the hair would just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. That's how my hair feels. So but the antenna is like, it's all like the hair on my arms and legs and everything just stands up. Pay attention.
I love it. I love the description of your hair is growing.
Yes, I know. It's such an odd thing. And nobody ever, they're like, what? Unless somebody has that. And then they're like, I totally get it.
Right.
So
you get the goosebumps, the
goosebumps, the validation. I get the fuzzy, it's not butterflies, but like a fuzziness in my stomach that says, yep, the heart can race. I mean, there's all kinds of signs, but usually the one that stands out the most is the one that's just kind of attention. Like, pay attention right here. What did you just hear? What did you just see? What did you just feel? Or what were you thinking about?
So where do you think intuition comes from?
I think it's our innate connection to the spirit world. I think we are naturally, so we are a spirit in a body. And without the spirit, the body doesn't live. And so, I mean, those of us that have been with bodies that don't have a spirit in them, when somebody has passed, you can tell. I mean, it's a shell. So I believe that it is our natural communication. So it is the way that we communicated before we came. And now we're using the body as the way to get attention because we have the physical body, which we're here to integrate. You know, we're here to learn how to be in harmony, both spirit and body. And so when we drop the body, that we don't need to have intuition anymore because we are. You know, we are intuition. Like that is what we are. It is our communication, our connection. And so we might use angels. Angels might be a channel for us. Spirit guides might be a channel for us. Deceased loved ones, ascended masters. They're all different ways of connecting and communicating with our natural ability. Which is why I think intuition is so important because it is our nature.
And how do you tell the difference if the information is, you know, coming from your brain or head or your heart?
That's a great question. Probably the easiest way is, are you going to the information or is the information coming to you? So what I mean by that is if you're thinking about something, you're worried about something, it's always on your mind, you're searching for an answer. Generally with intuition, it comes to you out of the blue. It kind of pops in. You know, you might be driving down the road and thinking about the vacation you want to go on, and all of a sudden it pops in, call Aunt Lavelle, right? And then okay, I better call her because it came to you. So often we're so in our head that there's no space for anything to even come to us because we're so in the energy of where we are that we can't allow spirit to come to us. So we have to make space for that. So of course, meditation and visualization and doing some journaling and opening up, doing some automatic writing, all of those tools help. But I think the easiest way to tell is if it's in your mind and you're continuously thinking or feeling about it, your heart, then that's where you have to really get clear to be sure it's intuition, because so often it's your head. The other way to tell is intuition is usually the thing that doesn't make sense. It's usually the opposite of the thing that makes the most sense. So your head is going to be like, well, yeah, I ought to do this because that makes sense. Intuition is going to give you a message like, huh, that's kind of, I don't know about that. That's usually intuition.
I couldn't agree more. It's the information it's all readily available if you just learn how to tune into it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we born with intuition, or is it something we have to work to create?
I think it's natural. It's our nature, but we also have to work to create it because it's trained out of us. So we have that nature, we have that connection. Like I have a 10-month-old grandson, and he is, he's just pure, not quite pure, but almost pure spirit, right? But he's being trained, and society gets a hold of us as young people and tells us, no, there's nobody there. No, you don't have that friend that you're talking about that you can't see. No, grandma's actually dead. So it gets trained out of us. So yes, we have it, and it is our nature, and we have to learn how to allow it, because most people have not been encouraged and supported to trust their intuition. So the answer is yes to both.
Mm-hmm. So how do people open to receive intuitive guidance?
So there's a lot to be said about asking. When we ask for guidance, connection, signs, messages, that's a great step. But I think what does happen oftentimes is we can ask all day long, but if we're not open to receive it, it's kind of like we're sitting there and our arms are crossed, right? We're like, yeah, well, it's not Tuesday at 3:00 like I asked, right? Or I want a sign, show me a butterfly right now. We put these things out and we expect it to show up in this exact form, that we miss the form that it actually can show up in. So to me, one of the best exercises, and I think this is helpful for most people in all of life, is to learn how to be open to receive, period. Because if you're open to receive love, support, abundance, joy, happiness, connection, messages, signs, then it's going to benefit every aspect of your life. And I think a lot of times we need an action to do that. So like, for example, in my life, I really struggled with being open to receive anything. Like I couldn't receive help. I couldn't receive a compliment, all of those types of things. And so I really started to just open my arms and breathe into my heart and say, I am deserving and worthy of receiving. And that might not fit for some of you when you think, well, wait, but that's not really about intuition. But it is about being open to receive and not trying to control what's coming to you. And so when we can allow ourselves to receive and not have to control the form, the time, the day, the way, then spirit can bring an abundance of messages that you otherwise wouldn't have been aware of.
No, so true. So true. So let me change course here a little bit. I'm curious about your Oracle card decks. So your latest project is the multidimensional Oracle card deck. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. So probably about June of 2020, when the pandemic was getting hot and heavy, Spirit kept saying to me, because I was asking, how can I serve humanity the best? And Spirit just kept saying over and over again, teach them about their intuition. Teach them how to trust their own guidance, not to trust the news media, not to trust their neighbors, not to trust their families with what they're doing, to trust their guidance, their body, their messages. Okay, got it. So I was doing a lot with intuition during that time. And then I started, I heard the term multidimensional oracle. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So I Googled it, because that's what we do. We Google things. And it was some computer something, or multidimensional oracle, some big software type of thing. I'm like, well, that's not me. So then I realized, oh, I'm supposed to create it. So the multidimensional oracle, the idea behind it was, I love cards. I used angel cards when I was I used playing cards when I was a teenager to do readings and things. And then of course angel cards, and I have created a lot of different decks. But the multidimensional oracle deck is actually that. It's multidimensional. So it's got numbers, it's got symbols, it's got animals, and it's got ascended masters. So that it's a variety of different dimensions to help support a greater message for people. Because what I find is a lot of people, they'll use an animal deck for a couple days, and they'll use an angel deck for a couple days, and they use an affirmation deck. This has all of them in it, and working together, because we are multidimensional beings. You know, we are. So I was just, since you just asked that, I'm like, well, hey, I have my deck right here. Let me pull a card for us, because that could be cool. Just see what we get. Okay, so this is the card I pulled. So it's gonna be hard to see, but it's the Lighthouse. And I love the Lighthouse because the analogy that I use with the Lighthouse is reminding us that we can be a lighthouse for others. You know, it's to shine our lights no matter what. And that oftentimes when we shine our lights, we become safety for someone else, security for someone else. So so that's a little bit about, and I've loved them, and they've been very, very well received. People have really loved working with them because, again, they're not having to use a couple of different decks. It kind of covers it all.
Oh, I love it. And where can people find the deck?
They can find it on Amazon, or they can get it on my website. It's a little less on my website, so which is sunnydawnjohnston.com. And I also, the artwork on them is just my artist. I mean, she was amazing. Yeah. She just, it was just fascinating. The work that she did. I was looking to see if I could find one of my favorite cards, because there's so many, you know, like this is one of my favorites. Oops, let me move it.
There we go.
It's the Buddha. But so we did what we did. People loved the cards so much that what we did is we created prints also, so that you could actually have the energy of that, whatever card you felt pulled to. And those have been really popular, and they have nothing to do with me, because my artist is just amazing. But what was cool is I created the deck, and all of the different masters and animals, they all came to me. So I was like, okay, I'm supposed to create it. Who's in it? What do I do? And then I would just, you know, just kind of channeled. Buddha would show up, Jesus showed up, Kuan Yin showed up. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. So it was great. It was great. It was a really fun project.
I love it. I love it. So your spiritual journey, it really started when you were just a young teenager. So was your mom or dad spiritual? Did you grow up in a spiritual household?
That's a good question. So my mom and dad both were raised Mormon, or LDS. I was raised in Utah. And at the age, as a teenager, at the age of about 16, 17, they had already met, and they both decided that that didn't fit for them. So they both left the church. And so when I was born, they didn't really have any religious training at all. So they didn't give me any kind of background. However, I was raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, which the Mormon population was extremely high. And so it was kind of assumed that if you were in school or anywhere else, it was assumed that you were Mormon. And so if you weren't, you were really an outcast. That's why I was struggling so much when I was 13, because I was an outcast. I was the only one on both sides of my family that wasn't baptized and didn't do all the church stuff. And so there was a lot of struggle within me. And at the same time, it didn't fit for me. So my mom started studying metaphysics when I was about 10 or 11, and opening up to some of the new age ideas and things. And she was always intuitive. And so I really had that support. And I could talk to her about any of this, but I also really didn't believe it myself for quite a while, even though I was having the experiences. But yes, my mother was very intuitive, and she really supported me and has supported me throughout my journey. My dad, he wasn't against it. It wasn't his thing, but he wasn't against it. So it was much more my mom that supported me.
What a great story. Now, when you look back at the struggles that you had as a teenager, were they, now looking back, do you think that those struggles were beneficial for you in order to develop the spiritual path? Or do you think that would have happened regardless of your struggles?
I think that everything serves a purpose. And I think that it taught me a lot of things. First and foremost, I think it helped me to see how challenging it is for people that have religious background to be able to release themselves from it, because I was surrounded by it. And I think it also helped me, as painful as it was during that time and even into my early 20s, it also helped me to be able to understand my clients and my students better now. Like, I understand when people are struggling to either fit in or don't feel like they're a part of, or feel the shame and the guilt of being different than everybody else. That kind of the black sheep of the family, or the black sheep of the state, or the black sheep of the school. I was all of those. And so I think that it made me ultimately a lot stronger in my conviction and my truth. And it also has helped me to have even compassion, even for those that are so strongly religious, because at first I just couldn't stand them. And I was like, those people are so mean, and they just think that everybody has to be their way. But now I understand why people need that, and how they lose their power to it, and understand the insecurity that often can come from that. So I think I can be of greater service in that way now.
Yeah, that's good advice. And if you could give any kind of advice to the listeners that are looking to develop their spirituality, connection with the spirit world, their intuitive abilities, what advice would you give to them?
I think most importantly is we got to quiet that mind. Got to quiet that mind to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
So that we can have the connection with spirit that is innately, authentically there. And we've been trained in this physical realm to use our brains and to use our mind all the time. And I think that there's a lot of value in just quieting the mind and being in the presence of spirit. And so for me, one of the things, I know a lot of people have resistance to meditation. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't quiet my, and believe me, I'm busy. I'm a go. So I get it. But one of the things that helped me was just taking time every day to acknowledge that I am spirit first. I am spirit in a body. And so I'm spirit first. And so a lot of times for my students, I say, just imagine you're just plugging into your spirit. You're just plugging in for a minute, just checking in, just saying, all right, I'm acknowledging I'm spirit first. Then I can connect to the body. And it doesn't have to be, I want you to get to a place where you can have time and space, but it doesn't have to be that way from the beginning. Just start with something that acknowledges your presence of spirit. And from there, I think you develop more of a desire to feel more connected to that, which then opens a space and quiets the mind and grows your connection and your intuition, etc.
That's great advice. And it's interesting because it always comes back to quiet the mind and meditate and connect. And anybody that I interview are, teachers and mediums, just like yourself, it always comes to that same message.
Yeah.
So hopefully all the listeners out there just, still that mind and connect with your spirit. Yeah. So before we wrap up this session, can you tell us where people can find, follow you on Facebook and Instagram, or your website, or how people can learn more about you or work with you?
You bet. So for sure on Facebook and Instagram, Sunny Dawn Johnston, on both. And I've got some good presence there. There's some free videos and things on YouTube. And then of course my website, which is my name, sunnydawnjohnston.com. And there's some good information, and there's some freebies and things like that on my website. And if you're interested in, working with me for like guidance, support, doing private sessions, I do a few private sessions a month. And I spend most of my time in my membership communities. So Elevate Your Life, which is the one you mentioned about really personal development, kind of healing our heart. And then my spiritual biz, helping people to helping people that do this work, helping them to get to a place where they can earn a good living doing this work, because so many of us that do this work have these deservability issues around actually making money. So helping people clear that out.
I love it. So I'm going to be putting that information in the podcast notes as well. So it's sunnydawnjohnston.com, and I'll also put her Facebook link and her Instagram link in the podcast notes. So you can just go click on it and go check out her website, as well as Facebook and Instagram. So I just want to thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you share your knowledge with the listeners.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Happy to be here and great to meet you and find out that we're neighbors almost. So that's awesome.